Join us on this episode of The Marvel of Horror, where me and my guests will be discussing, amongst many things, the 1987 cult classic Monster Squad, a horror comedy about a group of adolescents taking on your favorite iconic monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein. Make sure you find us at YouTube, The Marvel of Horror Podcast. Like, subscribe, leave comments below. Call it a day. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Marvel of Horror, where we discuss all things past, present, and future as they pertain to the horror genre. I'm your friend, your host, your fellow horror enthusiast, Bruce Marvel, and tonight our guest is a New York City-based actor originally from Delaware. He has a background in performing arts, and he has expanded that skill set into the realm of content creation, sketch comedy, and producing. I'm very happy and honored to say he's a producer of this show. He's also one of New York City's finest nannies, influencing kids to be extraordinary and to dream big. He's my dear friend, my brother we love very much, Eddie Layfield. Welcome to the show, my man.
I'll use this moment to tell your audience that you, as a person in my life, like whether you know it or not, influenced a lot of my childhood and my taste in things, and this is how I'm going to set this story up. My beautiful sister, your loving wife, Leela Marvel, was my first nanny, caretaker person that would watch us when mom and dad were at work, and being the big sister that she was, a responsible big sister, she was not. She would often for Christmas.
I knew this is where this story was going.
Because we make fun of her every year for Christmas about it. It's like you can't let it go. But every year,
it's all in fun.
It's all in fun. Every year we would get soap and books from my sister for Christmas. For Christmas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For Christmas.
It's more of an Easter gift, but Christmas.
Don't get me started on Easters. I would get stuffed animals and shit for Easter too.
I would have got a couch, not the chair.
Sorry, I need a bigger couch.
No, yeah. Tell me everything.
But you came into our life, and we'll say 1999 or whenever 99. You started coming around. 99. That was when we started going from soap and books every year to comic books to video games to just pretty much more rad things in our life. Well, you did that.
Well,
wrestling too, man. Wrestling's huge.
Well, I was very young.
How old were you when you were coming around? I was born in 92.
I was 18.
Oh, really?
18, yeah. 19 years old. Yeah, I was 19. So I was born in 81. So I was like 19 years old when I started courting your older sister.
Thank you for being so respectful when talking about my sister.
She is the mother of my child.
That's right. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm very happy for you guys.
I will want him to get soup and books now and not violent video games.
That's all he's getting. That's all he's getting forever.
It comes full circle.
That's right. Full circle is your young son is going to get soap and books for years. And then I'll let my wife Beatrice get him fun stuff.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
So when I started coming around, I was 19. I didn't have any kind of real experience with
kids,
young kids, or kids that now are my brothers. I say that with love and admiration. My young brothers-in-law, and it was like so I was already like, your mom didn't like me.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
That's another story for another day.
Tell it.
I'll say then there were probably a series of shit tests that I failed miserably. So I was like, man, you guys are young guys, you and your brother, and it's like, man, you're my sister's boyfriend. Even at a young age, like, you're my sister's boyfriend. We gotta give you a hard time.
Yeah, I feel like we tried.
No,
you were too fucking cool.
Well, you guys were kids.
Yeah.
And you guys were great kids. It was fun. It was fun when I finally got used to being around you guys and you guys being used to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. We had great times.
Yeah. You're good. You're a good role model for us, for sure, man. We were. You said we were good kids, man, and you're being generous. We were monsters.
You were not monsters.
We were monsters.
You were not monsters.
Like these guys.
They were young. They were young boys, and they had a lot of energy. and they were you know what I mean. Brothers fight. How do
Yeah.
I know? I got two older brothers,
Yeah.
and they're older.
Yeah.
So when we used to fight, I couldn't dish out what I was getting.
You
By a long
know,
shot, they're 5 and 6 years older.
you
I got the
share.
shit beat out of me. Let's put it that way. I love them. I wasn't bullied or abused, but brothers fighting. I was on the losing end of those fights all the time.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, I get it. Being the youngest of the brothers, it comes with a title and a punching bag.
Yeah, it comes
Aspect
with
to life.
yeah,
Yeah.
comes with a very high threshold. I'll never forget my introduction into the horror genre was it was Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Oh yeah.
I love Abbott and Costello.
It
I
was-
didn't know they have a Frankenstein thing.
Oh my god,
I'm
you
gonna
are
watch it.
missing. You need to. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. I'm pretty sure the year is 1944.
Mm-hmm.
So my first Frankenstein wasn't even Boris Karloff.
Mm-hmm.
It was Glenn Strange because he's the Frankenstein. And there's one scene there's one scene in that movie where Lon Chaney Jr. dons makeup because Glenn Strange got hurt on set. But
that was awesome. You knew that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I know that movie.
Hell yeah.
I know that movie in and out. If you go back, you can see. If you go back and watch,
Yeah.
Because the premise of that movie is they want to take Abbott's brain and put it into the Frankenstein monster.
Mm-hmm.
So Dracula, who's resurrected the Frankenstein monster, which is we'll get to this film because that's kind of the same plot. You can tell it's a love letter to those movies, Monster Squad.
Yeah.
So they're going to do this whole brain swap, and Lon Chaney's turned into the Wolfman, and he's coming in, and he's wrecking havoc, and he's stopping the whole thing. So, but they already had the electrodes up to Frankenstein, so now he's Frankenstein's monster. So now he's strong, and when he gets up, he throws the one lady through the window. And when they pan back and they're coming out of the room, you see he goes like this, and he sweeps the big operating table out of his way.
Yeah.
It's clearly Lon Chaney Jr. in the makeup.
Really?
Not Glenn Strange.
Ah.
But it was real quick.
Huh.
And if you don't, if you don't know to look, I mean, obviously people who know the movie will know. But if you're watching that movie for the first time and I didn't tell you that, you probably wouldn't even catch it.
Yeah, no. And that's what got you into this whole world that you love so much now, huh?
Yes. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein that my father showed me because he loved these movies. And then I was off to the races. I was like, all right, I want to see more Frankenstein. I want to see more. I want to see more of these guys. What's next? And I was like, I mean, I have pictures. I was I want to say I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was dressing up like Frankenstein when it wasn't Halloween.
That's cool. It's like a Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm like,
Happy
St.
Patrick's Day.
Mom, watch. He sits there like this, and sits up. I mean, there's pictures of it of our couch.
You doing it?
Oh man. Yeah, and like I said, I never looked back.
That's cool.
Never looked back.
That's
horror.
nice.
All horror, all the way, baby.
Hell yeah. That's neat.
So, what was your introduction into the horror genre?
That's a good question, and I love that you ask it to all your guests.
Yes,
because it's a good way.
Gotta know.
It's a good way to start the episode.
What makes your horror world tick, man? What started it all?
I thought about it before coming, and I will say that the Monster Squad was probably one of the first horror-esque films that I saw. I saw it at a young age. My grandfather showed it to me.
Nice.
Granddad Lee. We have these old home videos where he'll be walking around, I'm assuming with a camcorder that was probably this big on his shoulder at the time.
Yeah, camcorders that weighed like
100.
Yeah,
like 50-pound camcorder at the time. I'm probably 2 or 3, and he's filming our aunts and uncles. And at the end of all of these videos, because I like to watch them now and just kind of remember him and see them, he took a moment of every film that he did, and he sets the camera up on a tripod in front of himself like this, in a nice chair that he had in his home.
That's cool.
And he would talk to the camera, and he would just say, hey, it's me, it's Lee. Here's how things are going. Here's how life is. And it was awesome. And
that's super awesome.
It's really neat.
That's super cool. And that's something like, he had the
well, he was probably doing it before I mean, nobody had smartphones or
Yeah,
camcorders. Like,
but he actually
find one
was
for
like
your
he
home.
would to look ahead and be like, this would be something cool to leave
Yeah,
behind, to leave
yeah,
behind
to
for
like leave a
people.
message for them, and like,
Yeah.
it's like turning
Well,
it on and seeing a
no.
ghost.
Yeah, like I said, well, no days guaranteed. So he knew that.
Yeah,
He knew
that's
that a long time ago. He was,
yeah,
he was ahead of the curve.
yeah, and it's cool. So now here we are in front of our cameras,
Immortalized,
trying to do
for
what
Apple.
he did. But so Lee, my grandfather, showed me this movie when we were far too young.
Oh,
Yeah,
come
it's a
on.
good movie, but still, it is scary at times. Like, I know it's
Yeah.
not Nosferatu or You Did the Invisible Man, a couple episodes, and I know it's not horror, blood, gore, horror. There's a lot of comedy moments in there.
There's a lot of comedy, and there's a lot of there's a lot of jokes. So I saw this
There's a lot
movie.
of jokes. But there's a lot of horror too, especially for a kid of my age seeing it the first time.
Yeah, there's definitely some serious moments in this movie. But like I said, the first time I saw it, so this movie, Monster Squad, directed by Fred Decker, written by Fred Decker and Shane Black. Mm-hmm. We'll get to them in a second. But Fred Decker, another movie he directed that's very, very popular in the horror community of cinema is Night of the Creeps.
Do you think maybe, do you want to tell the audience, if they don't know, what Monster Squad is about? Can you just wrap that up and real quick?
Sure.
Summarize it for your friends.
So real quick, Monster Squad is about a group of
they're probably
12, 13-year-olds with Phoebe, little sister.
Oh yeah, Phoebe.
And they discover that Dracula is alive and well in modern times of 1987, and he's after an amulet, and if he can capture this amulet, he can overthrow the balance of good and evil into his favor. So him, with the help of the other legion of monsters we see before us, he goes to get this amulet, which just so happens to be in their town.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
But
we don't care about that.
The 4 boys of the Monster Squad.
4 boys with the help of the older
Rudy, which is really we're getting past the plot and getting deeper in there now.
So basically, 100 this amulet 100 years after Abraham Van Helsing tried to destroy Dracula and his legion of monsters. Now these young adolescents are tasked with this endeavor.
Do you remember the opening of the movie?
Yes, it's fantastic.
It's like Star Wars, where they have the words just kind of come from the bottom and go upwards, and they're blood red and all horror-like and creepy, and they come up and they're talking about, Van Helsing fighting Dracula, trying to stop his legion of evil monsters. And then the last sentence is, they blew it.
They blew it. So it's,
it's so funny.
That whole just thing you just described just sums up this movie. Like, it's very dark, it's very serious, but just got this comedic undertone to it.
It kind of sets up the tone of the whole movie.
Exactly.
That, we know what we are doing. But we know that we are also being comical and funny. But they're never winking at the camera, No. They're never like, sometimes like Lauren Hardy in those older black and white films, they're like, you get the joke, right? But they really don't. They nuance it so well in this movie.
I mean, now, it's not, this movie's almost, let's see, 87, so 97, so it's almost 30 years old, right? Maybe even, the delivery of these lines, it may seem hokey now just because of times, but I don't think so. I mean, I watched it recently. It's like the delivery is just so smooth with all the comedy and everything. And like you said, there is some kind of dark stuff in this movie, but they balance it so well
with these things.
You don't really have time to stop and focus on that.
Right.
To keep going.
The first time that you meet my favorite character, Horace.
Yes.
I love Horace. At that time, he was like the working kid. Yeah. He was booking and booking and booking and booking. And I did some research this morning to just kind of see like where he is now, right? He sadly died.
Yeah, he's 22?
At age 22 of pneumonia.
Yeah, his life had, you figure all that,
he was setting up a future that could have been great,
to accomplish what he accomplished at the age of before 23 years old,
and in that kind of character, it's hard to think like some of these characters do seem like caricatures, like Rudy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is like a typical bully bad boy from these like movies. You can find him in the Heathers movie.
All the girls love Rudy.
They love that guy, but he's
Why wouldn't they?
he's kind of like a stereotypical character for this time. And by putting him in there, and I mean, the first time you see him, it's like it's just quick, and he's eating the candy bar, and he's like, "What is that, fatty?" And he says, "My name is Horace." And that's the first time you hear him introduce himself. And I thought it was just so quick, and the delivery of it was so fast. He didn't even blink an eye at being called the bundle of sticks, which is a terrible thing to call anybody.
Every movie who's, especially in the 80s, and there's like the cult classics, like you got to have that montage.
Oh,
and they're clearly achieving more than anyone would be able to do in a just a regular 24-hour day.
Oh, in that montage?
Yeah.
They're doing crazy.
They're doing. I mean, they're going to school.
Mm-hmm.
They're making weapons. They're doing this. Mm-hmm. I mean, this guy's calling the army. They're writing a letter to the army.
Rudy's stealing things.
Getting pictures developed. That's another reason why I never see this movie.
Yeah.
Shop class. He's making bullets.
Yeah, he makes the silver bullet. I want to bring up that moment because the moment that he goes and gets those pictures was what we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Bruce and I were talking earlier about how this movie uses the comedy as like a nuance, I would say, that sometimes the comedy is just hidden in the background. Yeah. It's not part of the plot of Monster Squad. It's just a little bit extra. The one that we were talking about was the storyline of mom and dad, which we'll table and get to that. Yeah. But the one that I'm speaking of right now is when he goes and gets the pictures developed. Do you remember what those pictures are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because it's the brother's sister naked next door.
What's hilarious is so he's always spying on that girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it happens the first time he's in the clubhouse. He's looking out the camera and goes,
"But Frankenstein's monster gets the shot."
Exactly.
That's why he didn't know.
Exactly, man. That was my favorite joke because it was like just a bit of a joke in the background of a scene that the boys are having. And you can, if you care to look at the other people, you see Rudy's looking out the window and then it cuts to him.
I'm beginning to like this club.
Yeah, that's exactly what he says.
I love when they're getting ready to go, like, talk to her. They're getting ready to bring her up to the clubhouse and reveal the photo they have and kind of bribe her, or actually not bribe her, blackmail her. Into trying to read the words in Abraham's journal that they got at a yard sale. Like,
his mom picked up that journal at a yard sale.
Pick up at a yard sale. I'm like, man, what else was at that yard sale? That's the kind of swag you're
getting. Really.
I'm like, man,
did the owner of the yard sale come from Transylvania? Like, where did they get all this?
I don't know.
This stuff
sounds like a prequel they did make.
Yeah, this is a big plot hole, if anything.
Dr. Jekyll, and this is my yard sale. What do you got there? Oh, Abraham's diary. Sure.
It's like, you're gonna love that.
Definitely.
$5. You can have it.
Suckers.
Yeah.
It's German. They can't read it.
Where are they gonna find anyone who can speak German at this time?
Yeah, right.
Isn't this like 1987? It's like
1987. There's happens to be scary German guy.
Yes. Yeah. So that
living down the street.
Do you know that guy's name? The scary German guy.
Leonardo Cimino. I'm sorry, butchering his last name.
Something like that.
Cimino?
He had a long. I looked into him too. He had a long history of just being in horror films, even as early as like age 18.
Well, sorry.
No, I don't know what the film was, but I know that he started at a young age, like all these kids.
Mm-hmm. And he probably he played and I love how they do this too. They drop the hint so subtle that he is a Holocaust survivor in the film.
Oh yeah.
He also did play a Holocaust survivor, right?
In another film, yeah. I think also after reading his bio, he went to Normandy.
Oh, was he part of D-Day?
Mm-hmm. Like the second group of soldiers to run on in, and then it's funny. He was like, in the army, and then was like, I'm still gonna go and pursue acting. That's what I want to do for real. No, but that was such an interesting part of the movie too. The just the little nuances everywhere that were sprinkled around to make the movie a bit more special. That you were saying you can watch it now like you did yesterday and find something new that you haven't.
Yeah, and we will get into that.
Yeah.
And I also think so. And this is something I was talking about with on previous, on the episode with Leela where we did the Invisible Man. Me and Matt, Fat Matt, did an episode where we talked about Nosferatu. We were kind of talking about this too. It's the characters are so good and they come off so genuine, and the dialogue is so seamless.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that's very lacking in film today. Like
Sure.
some movies still got it, and I think not being a film expert guy, I really think that I attribute that to the fact that with streaming networks, so many using a lot more like production companies to make films now, and I think they're scrambling to make so much content that like the writing and the character development and stuff, I think that's kind of like the stuff getting lost in the sauce.
I think you're right that a lot of the movies coming out nowadays, the sauce, the thing that makes the movie, the dialogue, or at least the story plot point. I feel like there's a lot of movies nowadays that, because they're trying to sell the movie to as many viewers as possible, which ultimately makes sense. You got to get people to see the movie. By doing so, they're changing the script, or at least the plot or the storylines, to fit people and demographics in a way.
Yeah,
which
they're
to
more worried
me,
about checking boxes than
which to me ultimately I think it's showing that it's a failure on these production. I don't know if it's even the production company's fault. It's probably the producers at the end of the day, their call. There's probably a lot of people making calls, but I think that it's starting to affect the content that's coming out. Movies are not as good as they were. Comedies definitely are not the same that they were.
No.
I hate comedy movies now.
I couldn't tell you the last time I actually sat and watched a newer comedy that was like that just kept me
there.
And like, you know what I mean? Like back in the day, it was like you knew a good comedy because you were just reciting it all the time.
Yeah, you were saying the lines.
You're saying the lines, and everyone's like, I mean, I can't tell you how many. It's years later, and I can't tell you how many times a day. It's at least once a day that I'm quoting Dumb and Dumber, or I'm quoting Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy.
I'm quoting Tommy Boy, or I'm quoting Anchorman.
Yeah.
I'm quoting.
I love Lamp. Like, I had to explain that to the kids that I watched the other day, because I said it just randomly in passing. They were saying things they love, and I went, I love Lamp. And they said, what is that?
Are you just pointing at random things in the room and saying that you love them?
I had to explain to them what anchor men were. I was like, okay, there's an idea of an anchor person doing the news, and that's like a caricature. And that's what the movie's about. And they were like, what's the news?
Oh, God.
I was like, oh, shit.
She just turned around and be like, you smell like Bigfoot's dick. Statistics.
Yes.
60% of the time it works. Every time. It doesn't make any sense. But remember, he goes out, he stinks, and I'm pretty sure it's Judd Apatow.
It is. Or no, it's Paul Rudd's character.
Well, Paul Rudd, but the guy, so when Paul Rudd comes out,
yeah,
and everybody starts getting up, and this person's saying it smells like, everybody's saying it smells bad, but everyone's got like a different adjective.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Judd Apatow is the guy in the background. He's like, smells like Bigfoot's dick. Or no. The woman says it's Bigfoot's dick. Judd Apatow says like it smells like shit wrapped in burnt hair.
All right. Speaking of monsters and their
monsters,
private parts, do you think that Wolfman has nards?
Oh, he's got to.
Yes or no?
Come on, he has to.
Why does he got to?
Well, because
I don't know if he does. I guess he would.
So he's part wolf.
Yeah,
and he's part man.
Yeah,
both have those parts we're talking about.
I guess you're right.
It's given. He's got to. He's got to. If you think of that logic, I mean, we're talking about the logic of a werewolf.
Yeah.
If you think about that logic, he's got to have nards.
He's got to have nards.
They're probably, what I mean, we're not going to go into what we, size they could be. I don't know.
You tell me when to stop. It's a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, they gotta be.
It's like a kickstand.
They gotta be a nice size.
Huh.
If a kick from a 12-year-old boy can just.
Whoa.
They gotta be big and they gotta be sensitive.
I feel just like a kick from anybody.
Don't know for sure.
In the nards is going to bring you down. Have you been kicked in the nards?
Unfortunately, I have.
I have as well.
I've been kicked in the nards.
Mm-hmm.
I've been punched in the nards.
I don't know. I've been punched.
I've had a friend of mine who will remain nameless. We were like in a Rite Aid or something, and she had a like a stress reliever. You know, those hard stress relievers, and just
Oh, like,
innocently,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
innocently and jokingly, and she just turns around and just throws it, and she was I don't know if she was aiming,
Uh-huh.
but man, it got me dead center. I'm in the middle of I think back then it was Eckerd's.
What's that?
Well, they're not around anymore, but it's like Rite Aid. But I think it was called Eckerd's at the time, and my face was like this red, meat on the ground in the middle of like this aisle in the store, just holding my nards and my dork because it just
I forget that the first time they start talking about the Wolfman is they don't talk about his nards, they're talking about his dork.
as wolf dork.
Yeah, they
Well-
say wolf dork in like the first 5 minutes of the movie, and
Well,
that's
when
just
they're-
hilarious. What a line
Well,
to write.
I love when they're trying to. So the little brother's trying to ask his older sister if she's a virgin or not, and
Oh,
here
yeah.
comes Rudy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just inquiring. Have you ever, or may have not, or may have been dorked?
Yeah, dork.
And then I gotta say, I watched it recently, and I was like my brain kind of stopped for a second. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
That was a thing.
It was a thing, yeah. Dork meant penis.
Yeah.
You will notice, I don't know if you've noticed, that this movie was co-written by Shane Black. Now, Shane Black also wrote such films as Last Action Hero. He wrote Lethal Weapon. He was Ponch in Predator. No, not Ponch. He was the guy with the glasses who gets killed in the very beginning. He's the first one of Arnold's crew to get killed.
Oh, cool.
Hawkins.
I think it's awesome to put yourself in the movie,
Yeah.
and then kill yourself in the first act. That's great.
If you look at the films, he's written. They're always like they have a lot of like buddy themes to them. Lethal Weapon, the Last Action Hero, Arnold and the Boy. So he also, I'm pretty sure he wrote it and he directed it. You ever see The Nice Guys with Russell Crowe and
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling?
Yeah,
he wrote.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he wrote and
he
directed.
wrote that.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. The comedy in there is
So-
very, it's nuanced. It's
But
just a touch.
but he's always got that buddy
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then when you see these teenagers who are the buddies, they bust each other's chops and shit like that. What I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you get that connection. He's very good for that. Also, another thing about this movie and Predator is that done by Stan Winston. Now, Stan Winston, his studio is responsible for this movie. Stan Winston, you might know, he did Terminator, he did Predator.
He wrote them.
No, he was the special effects guy. Like, he came up with like the design
Oh.
and the costumes. He had a lot to do with the visual effects of Jurassic Park. When I see the Gill Man in Monster Squad,
Do you think he looks good? Because I thought he looked great.
oh, he looks great. But
compared to
his-
Wolfman, though, I think he looks like.
I think the Wolfman transformation scene in this
yes.
movie is a very underrated,
Mhm.
and it's one of the best transformation werewolf scenes I've ever seen. It's got just the right amount of scare, just the right amount. It's like
the
showing
morph.
you.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, and that's all
is-
practical.
it's all
effects.
practical
That's
effects.
not CGI. So they put him in a different costume per
mhm.
2-second shot of him
Yeah.
forming into that beast. It's really cool.
Well, that and the actor,
Mhm.
who we'll get to, his screaming
Mhm.
and everything. I mean, you can just feel how much pain he's going through, and
Yeah.
just real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, it's a very brilliantly done scene, and I think the Wolfman in this movie, and all these monsters actually, so they couldn't really get the licensing to the Universal characters. Like,
Right.
Universal Studios owns like the iconic look to these monsters we see before us. So they wanted to, because this film is clearly a love letter to those movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, from the plot, from who's in it, from how they're just updated. They're very updated looks of those classical monsters, and that look and feel. But they had to change it so they wouldn't get sued by Universal Studios for like basically copying their likeness.
Yeah.
But the Gill Man, I mean, the way I see him move, the design, I think of the Predator design. I mean, even the way the gills.
Yeah, how it kind of.
I mean, it looks. It's the costume is very similar to even his even the way he moves. I think is very similar to how the Predator looks in the Predator movie. So this movie has like a lot of like degrees of separation of Predator.
Yeah, he's probably just practicing to get to that. Do you think this movie made after Predator?
I'm not sure. They both came out in '87, so I'm not sure which one came out.
He was on
first.
a high.
Yeah.
He was doing well at this time. Neat.
And this movie, believe it or not, was actually like they looked at it as a failure. I mean, it didn't do well.
Huh? Why? Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Do you think I would assume at the time this was aimed towards kids?
Yeah,
because it's the leads are kids.
Like going back to the jokes, like there's a lot of jokes I didn't get until I got older.
Yes.
So I was like, that's what they were talking about.
Oh yeah, man.
But yeah, you know what? It's funny. It could be something as simple. I mean, if we actually like looked it up, but it could be something as simple as like what came out right around the same time. Because so John Carpenter's The Thing, also effects done by Stan Winston. Incredible movie, and it also failed miserably. And a lot of people were like, "Well, you know, that movie today. I mean, it's
a good cult classic.
It's even. I think it's even beyond a cult classic. Right. I mean, everyone knows that movie, and they should. You know, movie theaters across the U.S. just pick. You know, every Halloween there's going to be some movie theater that says, "Hey, we got John Carpenter's The Thing. We're going to show special," and it's like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And they sell out tickets.
Yeah.
Drive-ins, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I think it's because that was the year E.T. came out. And E.T. was so huge. Like, who's going to go see...
Oh, they came out the same year.
They came out around the same time. And E.T. was one of those movies. It was such a blockbuster movie and stayed in the theater for so long. Who's going to go see John Carpenter's Thing? They're taking their kids to see E.T. for like the third time.
I get that.
So, like, you know what I mean? It could be one of those things. Like, what else came out in '87 is just going to be like, nah, we ain't got time for that movie. We're trying to see this movie. You know?
Yeah. We were talking about the Wolfman. I can't remember his name, but the actor who plays the Wolfman is Uncle Rico.
Uncle Rico.
From Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Which is, we were talking about, you know, what was my introduction into horror. I would say my introduction into loving comedy, the first movie that I loved as a comedy movie was Napoleon Dynamite. I love it. It's so fucking good, man.
I remember when that movie, you know what I mean? I saw that movie when it came out, and I thought, I mean, it's a hilarious movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, like, the younger, like, you guys and your older brother Mark were, like, nonstop talking about that. Like, I feel like I knew the lines in that movie.
Yep.
And then I went and saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what you're talking about. But, he's Uncle Rico.
Back in the day, I could take this football and go square over them mountains, man. Napoleon. Just put me in, man.
Coach should put me in. Coach should put me in at the last quarter. Well, I love it. When they're taking his picture, it's just like every time I see him, I'm just like,
just a little, just under the chin. Is this good?
And this is actually
tilt your head a little bit. Right.
This is actually not the only time he played a werewolf. He played a werewolf in Fright Night 2.
When he came on and he's in that first scene, I think it's him. He's on the phone, or maybe he's at the police station in Monster Squad. I'm like, wait a minute, I know that guy. How do I know that actor? And here we are, full circle. Like, it's Uncle Rico.
He played that part really good. I mean, you can tell, like, he's that desperate.
I think his character is Desperate Man in the credits. Yeah.
I mean, he plays it perfectly. I mean, he's just, you know, definitely pity him by the end of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Okay. So, are we okay to talk about the end of the movie?
Spoiler alert, everyone.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen this movie, it came out in 1987. It's kind of your own fault.
Yeah.
You only had like almost, you know, over 30 years.
So as a person, I am easily affected by movies and art and plays. That's kind of why I went into the arts.
I was going to say, hence why you went into the arts.
Yeah. I find that I have a large... we'll say it's a faucet, and you turn that faucet on, and the water that flows out is my emotion. Okay. I feel like I'm overflowing sometimes, and which is not a bad thing. You know, don't let anyone tell you that it is either.
That's
right. Well, with this being said, I just lost it when Phoebe
Oh
is saying
God.
goodbye to Frankenstein.
Yeah. So okay.
It's so sad. The "don't go" hit me hard.
Yeah.
Like it was like something that was deep in my body that I still had felt. And I think when I was a child, I probably felt the same way, going, "Don't go. Please don't leave Phoebe. Why?" And then she chucks
Yeah, scraps.
oh,
So
my heart. Frankenstein.
so I was 6 when I watched the Monster Squad and fell in love with it and begged my father to rent it every time he went to there was a supermarket called Pathmark back then, and they had a little rental for movies in the grocery store, right? So every time he went to Pathmark, which with 3 growing boys was at least once a week, I was crying like, okay, either rent Abbott and Costello v Frankenstein or rent Monster Squad.
That's awesome.
So it was awesome, but my brothers were very tired of watching these movies because, like I said, I was only 6, and I was gonna throw a fit if I didn't get to watch what I wanted to watch, and so we had this big, huge, 80-pound VCR, right? I mean, the VCR was just like
a VCR plays movies.
Yeah, for those
young listeners out there.
Yeah, and the original ones were like bigger than a PS5 and outweighed it by like 100 pounds. You could kill someone with VCR if you could pick it up. So yeah, I mean, I wore the VCR out, killed it with these movies.
With that one, just rewinding,
and watching. Well, this one and a couple of other ones, but like, yeah, and I mean, it got to the point where like I would get beat up later because they had to watch Monster Squad for like the 50th millionth time. I used to cry my heart out every time I saw Frankenstein's monster go away. And yeah, so I watched this movie. I try to watch this movie like at least once a year, once in a couple of years, but I watched it specifically to get ready for our episode of Marvel Horror. Yeah, it was just all coming back. I was like,
bringing you back, dude. It was tough. I was like, oh my god, the moment that the Wolfman dies.
He's not evil. He shouldn't be going to limbo.
That's true. He shouldn't have. I didn't even think of that. He was.
Yeah.
He was.
Son of a.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know what? And that's another thing too. So we talk about, what movies today lack, and it's like, okay, I was upset then as a kid, but I'm even upset now as an adult because the performance was so good and I was so emotionally invested, which, I gave a shit about what happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think movies are very good at doing that. You don't get me emotionally invested in these characters anymore to like, I'm going to shed a tear when I see this guy playing this role and these things happen. Like you create these scenarios about these people, you care about these people, and then Stephen King is really good at this in his novels. It's like you create these scenarios, you bring us along for the ride with these people, and then when the stuff starts happening, which it is going to happen, bad,
you start to care more.
You give a shit, and that's and you know what? That's at the end of the day, that's what makes it. That's kind of hard too. Like, it's scary when you feel like you know people and then you see stuff happening to them.
Yeah,
especially bad things. It's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it brought it brought it all back today. I was like,
it's fucking tough, bro.
It was real tough.
I'll say that movie earned that reaction from me.
Yeah,
because partly I would say it's because it's so short and sweet. It's only like 80 minutes, and I think movies should start to get back to that.
That's another
time frame. It's like I can't see Avatar 4 if it's gonna be fucking 3 hours. I can't. I'm not gonna do that shit anymore.
Yeah. I have a small child.
Yeah.
I work 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like I try and do other things like go to the gym to stay fit, and obviously the stuff we're doing with the Marvel of Horror. I don't have 4 hours to watch a movie, man.
No. Well, it's also kind of like
maybe Marvel
selfish, or egregious to think that you are gonna get someone's time that long. I'll start by saying like I've started to dip my toe into producing my own work. I'm also helping you with this awesome project.
I was getting ready to say you might see a certain name on the end credits of this show.
You might.
Producer.
Well, and so I getting my feet wet into producing and putting out my own content that you should go and watch. You know,
Are you referring to the clam?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring it up yet, but like we were talking about content and making movies, and like so as a person who is experiencing, you know, people who are watching content now, our attention span is quick, and
It's
then
quick, yeah.
you can also see the data on all these apps of who's watching and how long on these things. So I can see if I put out a 30-second video, I can see that people stop watching after 10 seconds. So for me to put out a video that's 12 minutes and expect people to go and watch it, it's kind of absurd on my part.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
stinks that there's not enough attention span in our I guess society right now to watch things longer than a couple minutes. Some people will, hopefully.
Some people will.
Watching this one right now,
Yeah,
hopefully.
please do.
And subscribe. And leave your comments below. We love that kind of stuff
Yes,
too,
we
man.
do.
We want to talk to the
We
community.
need the feedback, especially the good feedback.
Yeah, give us
Yeah,
good
don't,
feedback.
You know, if you're gonna, and spoiler, if you're gonna go try and cancel me on Twitter, I'm not there. But yeah, like you said, it's like people.
I just think it's too crazy to think. I'll end the point. I think movies should get back to the same time as like an 80-minute movie.
They do,
because
or they should. I mean,
that's fair, and you can accomplish a lot in that time and get your audience to feel what you want, like crying for Frankenstein as he's falling into a limbo abyss.
This movie, as far as like we go back to the opening scene, you know, the castle. It's like, you know, 1800s, and it's scary, and the set looks great, and you know, another thing too, I love, like, there's going back to like the little nuances of this film. I love how the first shot, when the lightning flashes and they're going through the door, you see the skeleton impaled, an homage to Vlad the Impaler.
Oh,
right.
That's neat.
And you go in, and there's this scary vampire woman, like eating just like a possum or something, and it's like, man, it's like, ooh, it just sets the tone. It's so cool, and like I said, the set looks great.
Oh yeah.
That's actually when, you know, it's not green screen. They built the set, so so it feels real because it is real.
Yeah, it's neat to watch the movie now with like an HD TV.
Yeah, but it still looks really good.
And it looks great, you know, that opening sequence when they're going through all of those just establishing shots of Dracula's home. They get to the moment where they show Dracula as the bat. And that's I'm assuming a practical effect of like a prop, you know, like what's this, Steve Henson, is that his name? The guy who did all the Muppets and all of like
Jim Henson.
Yes. You know, I assumed it was like a Jim Henson-esque puppet. And I'm sure seeing it in 1987 on a big screen was terrifying. Yeah. But then to see it in HD, I was not terrified, but could admire the special effects and the effect of the time.
Yeah.
Because you get a clearer view now with HD TV, and you can see that, you know, how it looks and stuff. It still holds up as a movie for sure.
Well, even this movie, like, so this movie was very smart on how it did things. Like, we referenced the Wolfman scene, which to me, the Wolfman scene, this is probably a stretch, but that Wolfman scene, you can tell, at least to me, it's like, okay, that was taken right out of Hitchcock's playbook. Because if you ever go back and you watch Psycho, you never see the knife go in, and the way he cuts that shot, it makes it seem like so much more is happening than is really happening. Just because the way he cut it.
Yeah. And that's the same thing as that Wolfman shot.
And that's the same thing as that Wolfman
just see little things, like
you maybe see
some hair and a shirt rip, and maybe, I love when you see his face almost there.
His face, and like, to me, like, and I love it too, like, another thing really fast, because we're talking about the Wolfman, now I'll go back to what I was trying to say. I love too, like, to me, and maybe it's just me, like, this was like a love letter to the Universal movies, but that Wolfman, the way he moves, the way he's got the white shirt that he always wears and how it's ripped up, that to me, he's very much Oliver Reed's werewolf in The Curse of the Werewolf. If you actually go and watch how he moves in that film, that stance he has and everything, that Wolfman's clearly a perfect mix of the Lon Chaney werewolf and the Oliver Reed werewolf from Hammer and Universal. So I thought that was really cool.
That is cool.
But yeah, it's like, so one of my favorite expressions, and I think horror movies need to go back on it. It's less is more.
Yeah.
And you talk about like Dracula, like seeing the kind of like the puppet bat. I think one of the really cool scenes in that movie is
When
where
he drops it and he's in his clothing.
no, like, well that one's cool
That's
too.
neat. Yeah. That's
But
super cool.
when Sean's dad, Sean, the leader of the Monster Squad, but Sean's father's a cop. Kind of like a badass everyday Joe cop too. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He does that. He plays that role very well. When he shows up, because Dracula just came, blew up their fucking clubhouse.
Yeah, with a stick of dynamite.
Yeah, I thought
and
that
then
was
his
kind of weird.
and then his partner
And kills
he blows
Sean's
his
dad's partner
up.
up. Yeah, oh yeah.
That's wild. The movie gets real for the parents. The parents are going through traumatic stuff,
which
and
I
we
think
talked
is,
about this too.
We do, which I think is very smart.
Yeah,
I think that's very intelligently planned. It's like, okay, parents got to bring their kids to this movie. Let's have a grown-up plot going on to keep them invested while we got the kids stuff going on. I think that's very clever.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. In what we're talking about they in the beginning of the movie they set up that the mom and the dad are going through issues.
Yeah.
I think the mom says one of them says we have marriage counseling tonight.
Yeah.
And then he gets the call about the Wolfman
and the mummy.
Yeah, and so he leaves
being stolen from the museum.
Oh yeah. So right in the beginning, they're setting up this subplot about mom and dad having terrible issues. You saw at the end what we were talking about. Is there's at the end of the movie, right before like the big scene where they all go outside
into the town square,
the mom is in the house and has packed her bags already.
See, like all the times I've watched that movie, I've never
go back and watch it. She has the bags packed. There's 2 bags in front of the front door and a stuffed animal. And it gets even more interesting if you go further back to when they're doing the montage. Do you know how Rudy got the medals?
He stole all of her.
He stole all their silverware. And so why would the wife be going? Because
she's bagging her stuff.
It's Rudy steals the silver, and then the next shot is the mom looking, where's all my silver?
Well,
why would she be looking through her silver?
Yeah.
Because she's taking it to leave her husband.
Like you said, it's really wild.
It's wild. It's an awesome little subplot.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And that scene, so when he shows up, Dracula's already at the house, and Dracula already blew up the clubhouse, kills his partner, and basically says,
I'm going to kill your son.
I will have your son.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's a very sinister, he's a very good Dracula. He's very sinister.
I agree.
And he plays the role very well. The mom you see him do this, but then it focuses on the mom, and you only see the shadow of the bat transform and fly away.
Oh, yeah.
That's super cool.
That's really good effects. That's a really cool way to get around.
And kudos,
you can't make it morph. You can't get CGI.
And kudos to that actress, because the look on her face, that's what it captures. I'm seeing this man transform his bat and fly away.
Yeah, and it reads right
and
on
all
her
this
face.
It reads perfect.
Yeah. While we're speaking of her, that mom is the same mom from the Goonies, which is funny. She was playing neglectful moms with daddy or husband issues. Where's the dad in the Goonies?
Yeah.
He's a goof too.
Yeah, well, he's getting ready to. They're getting ready to lose their house.
Yeah,
that's why they get one to turn her on to begin with.
She needs to pick her husbands better, honestly.
Well, I think things plan out better because she eventually gets a job at a news anchor, and she's breaking the story of the terrorist operation at Nakatomi Plaza.
Oh, that's right.
So
she moved up.
Yeah, she did move up. Hopefully, everything.
Left both of those husbands, no silver. But
I don't know.
Hopefully, she made it out of the building.
The town was pretty wrecked after the portal to Limbo showed up. Maybe she patched things up with her husband, and they moved out to L.A.
Is that where Die Hard is set?
Yeah.
We need to get the writer director on the line and just ask him if there is any connection in this universe. Can you imagine? He's like, oh yeah, Monster Squad and Die Hard, same universe. Well, during Christmas, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know who the writer was, but his name escapes me, but I know for a fact that the director of Die Hard is the director of Predator. So we're coming full circle. Well, that about wraps it up here on this week's edition of the Marvel of Horror, where we discuss all things past, present, and future as they pertain to the horror genre. I'm your friend, your host, your fellow horror enthusiast, Bruce Marvel. And if there's a movie you'd like us to discuss or you just want to leave us some feedback, please do so in the comments section below. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining us.